hear a story? I have one that is one of my favorites. Absolute favorites. Anna likes it too. I have a chickadee on my bookmarker. This one is by Lawrence Hausman. It's called Rocking Horse Land. This is a wonderful imaginative story. We see good friends who are always mindful of each other's interest and give each other room to grow. Prince Fredolin woke up, both eyes at once, and sprang out of bed into the sunshine. He was 5 years old that morning. By all the clocks and calendars of the kingdom, and the day was going to be beautiful. Every golden minute was precious. He was dressed and out of his room before the attendants even knew that he was awake. In the antechamber stood piles of glittering presents. When he walked among them, he came up to the measure of his waist. His fairy godmother had sent him a toy with the most humorous effects. It was labeled, "Break me, and I will turn into something else." So every time he broke it, he got a new toy more beautiful than the last. It began by being a hoop, and from that it went on, and the prince broke it incessantly for the space of an hour, during which it became, by turn, a top, Noah's Ark, a spinning rope, a man-of-war ship, a box of bricks, a picture puzzle, a pair of stilts, a drum, a trumpet, a kaleidoscope, a steam engine, and 950 other things exactly. Then he began to grow discontent because it would never turn into the same thing again. And after having been broken the man-of-war ship, he wanted to get it back again. Also, he wanted to see if the steam engine would go inside Noah's Ark. But the toy would never bring two things at the same time. This was very unsatisfactory. He thought his fairy godmother ought to have sent him two toys, out of which he could make combinations. At last he broke it once more, and it turned into a kite. And he was flying the kite, and he broke the string, and the kite went sailing away up into the clear sky and was never heard of again. Then Fredolin sat down and howled at his fairy godmother. What a dissembling lot of fairy godmothers were to be true. They were always setting traps and making their godchildren unhappy. Nevertheless, when told to, he took up his pen and wrote her a nice little note, full of bad spelling and taradiddles and what kind of day about his birthday. He was spending and breaking up all the beautiful toy she had sent him. When he went to look at the rest of the presents, he found it quite refreshing to break a few that didn't send him giddily, turning into something else. Suddenly, his eyes became fixed with delight. Alone, at the end of the room, stood a great black rocking horse. The saddle and the bridle were hung with tiny gold bells and balls of coral, and the horse's tail and mane flowed till they almost touched the ground. The prince scampered across the room. He threw his arms around the beautiful creature's neck. All its bells jangled, and its head swayed gracefully down, and the prince kissed it between his eyes. Great eyes they were, color of fire, so wonderfully bright, it seemed they must really, really be alive. Only they didn't move, but they gazed continually with a set stare at the tapestry-hung wall, on which were figures of armed knights riding out to battle. So Prince Fredolin mounted on the back of the rocking horse, and all day he rode and shouted to the figures of the armed knights, challenging them to fight or lead against them against an enemy. At length, when it came to be bedtime, weary of so much glory, he was lifted down from the saddle and carried away to bed. In his sleep, Fredolin felt the black rocking horse swing to and fro under him. He heard the melodious chime of its bells, and in the land of dreams he saw a great country open before him. full of the sound of battle cry and the haunting horn calling into strange perils and triumphs. In the middle of the night he grew softly awake. His heart was full of love for the black rocking horse. He crept gently out of bed. He would go and look at it where it was standing, so grand and still in the next room, to make sure that it was all safe and not afraid of being by itself in the dark. Parting the door hangings, he passed through the wide, hollow chamber beyond, all littered with toys. The moon was shining in through a window, making a square crescent of light upon the floor. And then, all at once, he saw that the rocking horse had moved from the place where he left it. It had crossed the room. It was standing close to the window, with its head towards the night, as though watching the movement of the clouds and the trees swaying in the wind. The prince could not understand how it could have moved. He was a little afraid, and stealing timidly across, he took hold of the bridle to comfort himself with a jangle of its bells. As he came close and looked into the dark, solemn face, he saw that the eyes were full of tears, and reaching up, he felt one warm against his hand. "Why do you weep, my beautiful?" said the prince. The rocking horse answered, "I weep because I'm a prisoner and not free. Open the window, master, and let me go." "But if I let you go, I'll lose you," said the prince. "Cannot you be happy here with me?" The horse said, "Let me go, for my great brothers called me out of Rocking Horse Land. I hear the sweet mare winning to her foals, and they all cry, seeking me through the ups and hollows of the native fastness. Sweet master, let me go this night, and I will return to you when it's day." Then Prince Fridolin said, "How shall I know that you'll return to me? And what name shall I call you by?" The rocking horse answered, "My name is Rolandi. Search among my mane until you find it in a white hair. Draw it out and wind it on your finger. And as long as you have it wound on your finger, you are my master. Wherever I am, I must return to you at your bidding." So the prince drew down the rocking horse's head. He searched in the mane until he had found the white hair. He wound it on his finger and tied it. After that he kissed Rolandi between his eyes, saying, "Go then, Rolandi, since I love you and would see you happy. Only return to me when it's day." And so saying, he threw open the window to the steer of the night. Then the rocking horse lifted his dark head. He neighed aloud for joy, and swaying forward with a mighty circling motion, rose full into the air, and he sprang out of the free world before him. Fridolin watched how the plunge and curve and went over the bowed trees, and he neighed into the darkness of the night. Then swifter than wind, he disappeared in the distance, and faintly from far away came a sound of the neighing of many horses answering him. Then Prince closed the window. He crept back to bed, and all night long he dreamed strange dreams of Rocking Horse Land. There he saw smooth hills, valleys that rose and sank without stone or a tree to disturb the steel-like polish of their surface, slippery as glass, and driven over by a strong wind. And over them, with a sound like the humming of bees, flew the rocking horses. Up and down, with bright manes streaming like colored fires. And feet motionless behind and before went the swift pendulum of their flight. Their long bodies bowed and rose. Their heads worked to carry impetus to their going. They cried, neighing to each other over hill and valley, "Which of us shall be first? Which shall be first?" And then the mares with their tall foals came spinning to watch, crying also among themselves, "Ah, which shall be first?" "Rolandi, Rolandi is first," shouted the prince, clapping his hands together as they reached the goal. And at that, all at once he woke and saw it was broad day. And when he ran and threw open the window and holding out the finger that carried the white hair, cried, "Rolandi, Rolandi, come back, Rolandi." Far away, he heard an answering sound. And in another moment, there came a great rocking horse himself. Dipping and dancing over the hills, he crossed the woods and cleared the palace wall at a single bound. And floating in through the window, he dropped down to the floor by Prince Fredelin's side, rocking himself gently to and fro, as though panting from the strain of his long flight. "Now, are you happy?" said the prince as he caressed him. "Oh, sweet prince," said Rolandi. "Oh, kind master." And then he said no more, but became the still rocking horse of the day before, with fixed eyes and rigid limbs, which could do nothing but rock up and down with the jangling of sweet bells so long as the prince rode him. That night, Fredelin came when he had become still in the palace. And now, as before, Rolandi had moved from his place and was standing with his head against the window, waiting to be let out. "Oh, dear master," he said, as soon as he saw the prince coming, "let me go this night also. I will surely return before the day." So again the prince opened the window and watched him disappear, and heard from far away neighing of horses in Rocking Horse Land, calling to him. And in the morning, with the white hair round his finger, he called, "Rolandi, Rolandi." Rolandi neighed and came back to him, dipping and dancing over the hills. Now the same thing happened every night. And every morning the horse kissed Fredelin, saying, "Ah, dear prince and kind master," and became still once more. So a year went by, till one morning Fredelin woke up to find it was his 6th birthday. And as 6 is to 5, so were the presents he received on his 6th birthday for magnificence. For multitude the presents he had received the year before. The fairy godmother had sent him a bird, a real live bird, but when he pulled its tail it became a lizard. And when he pulled the lizard's tail it became a mouse. And when he pulled the mouse's tail it became a cat. Then he did very much want to see what the cat would eat the mouse, but not being able to have them both together, he got rather vexed, and with his fairy godmother. Again he pulled the cat's tail, and the cat became a dog, and the dog became a goat, and on until it became a cow. And he pulled the cow's tail, and it became a camel, and he pulled the camel's tail, and it became an elephant. And still not being content, he pulled the elephant's tail, and it became a guinea pig. Now a guinea pig has no tail to pull, so it remained a guinea pig, while Prince Fredelin sat down and howled at his fairy godmother. Oh, if you only had a fairy godmother, I'd give you one of those. But best of all, his presents were the one given to him by the king, his father. It was a most beautiful horse. "For," said the king, "you are now old enough to learn to ride." So Fredelin was put on the horse's back, and from having ridden so long upon his rocking horse, he learned to ride perfectly in a single day, and was declared by all the courtiers to be the most perfect equestrian that there ever was. But these praises and pleasures of rocking about on a real horse so occupied his thoughts that night he forgot altogether to set Rolandi free. But he fell asleep and dreamed of nothing but real horses and horsemen going to battle, and so it was the next night too. But the night after that, just as he was falling asleep, he heard something sobbing by his bed. A voice saying, "Oh, dear prince and kind master, let me go, for my heart breaks for a sigh of my native land." And there stood his poor rocking horse, Rolandi, with tears rolling out his beautiful eyes onto the white covers. Then the prince, full of shame at having forgotten his old friend, he sprang up and threw his arms around his neck. "Be of good cheer, Rolandi, for now surely I will let you go." And he ran to the window and he opened it for the horse to go through. "Ah, dear prince," said, and kind master, said Rolandi. Then he lifted his head and neighed, and the whole palace shook, and swaying forward till his head almost touched the ground, he sprang out and away into the night, over the hills, towards Rocking Horse Land. Then Prince Fridolin, standing by the window, thoroughly unloosed the white hair from his finger and let it float away into the darkness, out of sight of his eye, and he reached of his hand. "Goodbye, Rolandi," he murmured softly. "Brave Rolandi, my own good Rolandi. Go and be happy in your own land, since I, your master, was forgetting to be kind to you." And far away he heard the neighing of horses in Rocking Horse Land. Many years after, when Fridolin had become a king in his father's stead, on the 5th birthday of the prince, his son came to be celebrated. And there, on the morning of the day, among all the presents that covered the floor of the chamber, stood a beautiful foal of a rocking horse, black with deep burning eyes. No one knew how it had got there, or whose present it was, until the king himself came to look at it. And when he saw it, it looked so much like old Rolandi that he had loved as a boy. He smiled, and stroking its dark mane, said in its ear, "Are you then the son of Rolandi?" And the foal answered him, "Ah, dear prince and kind master, but never a word more." Then the king took little Prince, his son, and told him all the story of Rolandi as I have told it to you here. And at the end he went and searched for the foal's mane until he found one white hair. And after drawing it out, he wound it around the little prince's finger, bidding him guard it well and be ever a kind master to Rolandi's son. Here is the story of Rolandi, come to a good ending. I really like Rolandi's story. I really like that. Sometimes when we are good friends, when we really treat people right, it always comes back to us, sometimes generation later. Did you like that story? Well, that's that for now. But we'll come back with another one later. And you be good, and we'll see you then.